And that's really how we're supposed to think about the advice of Allah. It is for you. فِيهِ ذِكْرُكُمْ قَدْ جَاءَتْكُمْ مَوْعِظَةٌ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ. Advice, counsel has come to you from Allah. Take it seriously. It's Allah that's telling you that which is good for you. So our subject today, inshallah, is the relationship between men and women. And this ayah, the second half of this ayah is very famous, especially in Western circles and in modern circles, because they use this ayah of Surah An-Nisa to say men are allowed to hit women. You know, فَضْرِبُوهُنَّ. That's the وَضْرِبُوهُنَّ, which comes later on in this ayah. But today, that is not the subject at all. So much injustice is done to this ayah because the first half of this ayah, nobody even talks about. We're going to talk about that first half of the ayah today, which is hard enough to take in. It's hard enough to internalize what Allah is saying in that first half, okay? So now the first thing I want to tell you. Allah gave us this Qur'an in بِلِسَانٍ عَرَبِيٍّ مُبِينٍ, in clear Arabic language. Allah says the Qur'an is clear. And one of the reasons that the Qur'an is clear is that the Arabic language is extremely clear and it clarifies things. So if you're going to be honest with the book of Allah, you have to be honest with the language. You cannot read a meaning into the ayah that the Arabic language doesn't allow. You have to stay within the meaning. And Allah, unfortunately, this ayah, the way it's translated, a lot of times a great injustice is done to the meaning of the Arabic language. الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ is how this ayah begins. Men are, I won't translate yet, men are qawwam over women. Men are, the Arabic word is qawwam over women. And this is translated sometimes, men are authority over women. Men are in charge over women. And I'd like to share with you first and foremost that the word qawwam, which comes from qama, qaf, waw, and mim in the Arabic language, has nothing to do with authority and nothing to do with being in charge at all. In the exhaustive dictionary of the Arabic language, of the pages and pages you're going to read that have to do with this word, authority simply isn't there. Now, if you want to make sure men are authority over women, go find the reason somewhere else, but not in the book of Allah, not in this ayah. Not in this ayah. That is not just a crime against women, much bigger, this is a crime against Allah. Because now you're not being honest with what Allah Himself said, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Think about this from another perspective, from an imani perspective first. You know, Allah chose of all the languages, He chose Arabic. And of all the words of the Arabic language, there's like maybe 2% of the Arabic language is used in the Quran. 50 times more Arabic exists. And only 2% is found in the Quran, 2% of the vocabulary. And of that 2%, a very small percentage is used. Allah honored it so much, meaning this is the most noble words of the Arabic language. Allah chose them for His own words, right? And among them are words that Allah chose to describe Himself. So very, very few words in the Quran have the honor, and have the very few words in language have the honor of being used to describe Allah Himself. And the word qawwam actually shares a root with one of the names of Allah, Al-Qayyum. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa al-hayyul qayyum. It's the same origin. This word itself, the meanings of this word itself are sacred. Allah chose it to even describe Himself. To not be honest with the meanings of this word is to be extremely blasphemous. It's a very serious thing. So the first thing I'm going to try to do is try to explain some of the meanings of the word qawwam before we get into the ayah itself. الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. Men are qawwam over women. The word qawwam comes from the word qama, which is naqidul julus. It's the opposite of sitting. Qama actually means standing. Like qiyam, iqamatul salah, qad qamatis salah. It comes from the same origin. And the idea of being standing is actually being active, figuratively speaking. And sitting means being inactive. Men have to be active, play an active role in the lives of the women of their family. They cannot sit idly by or be passive when it comes to taking the relationship of women in their household. The first thing that comes from the word qawwam, and by the way, Allah's name Al-Qayyum, He's actively involved in everything He created. He didn't just create something and leave it alone. He's actively involved. The idea of someone taking a seat, taking a seat back actually suggests that somebody is uninvolved. So men are incredibly involved in the lives of women. قَوَّامُونَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. The first implication. Al-qiyam ya'ti bi-ma'na al-azam. Qiyam comes in the meaning of commitment and resolve. When you don't give up on something and you don't abandon something and you hold on to something, that's the meaning al-azam. For example, إِذْ قَامُوا فَقَالُوا إِذْ عَزَمُوا فَقَالُوا فَلَمَّا قَامَ عَبْدُ اللَّهِ يَدْعُوهُ فَلَمَّا عَزَمَ عَبْدُ اللَّهِ. When the slave of Allah showed commitment and stood up. Men are supposed to show over and over again their commitment to women. Men are committed to women. Actually, I would translate, because this is sighatul mubalagha, qawwam, fa'al, I would actually have to translate, men are repeatedly and incredibly committed to women. Men are incredibly committed to women. That's the second implication. They're active participants in the lives of women, and they're incredibly committed to women. That's the second meaning. The third meaning, مُلَازِمًا مُحَافِظًا. Someone who is always by someone else, sticks with them, is with them. There's one thing to be committed to someone in a distance, but actually to be close with someone and to accompany someone all the time and then protect them, to be protective of someone. Men are to be in close proximity to women. Men are supposed to stay close to women and stick with them, and at the same time they're supposed to be protective of them. Men are protective of women. This is the next meaning. And then, قَامَ وَقَفَ وَثَبَتْ. The other meaning of qiyam is to actually stay in place. Men are constant sources of support that stay there for women. Men are not unstable sources of reliance for women. Women need that stability in their life according to Allah Azza wa Jalla, and men will provide that stability. Al-qiyamu bihi, al-i'tina'u bihi. Qiyam, finally, the word qiyam also means to take care of something. And that's why an okay translation of the ayah is also Ar-rijal qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa. Men are maintainers of women, caretakers of women. These are the meanings of qawwam. Now in this ayah, we're not even going forward yet. Just in this phrase, you know what we've learned? We've learned that Allah Azza wa Jal put men in a huge position of responsibility over women. I'm not saying authority, I'm saying responsibility. A responsibility to take care of them, to be committed with them, to stick to them, to be a pillar by their side, to be a constant source of support, to be someone when their life is falling apart, they know this is not going to fall apart, they can lean on this. And Allah did not say husbands are qawwam to wives. He said men are qawwam to women. Even though the overall subject of the ayah is about husbands and wives, this is also for fathers and daughters. This is also for brothers and sisters. This is also for uncles and nieces. Any women in your family, they will need support from you. This is also for mothers who will find support in their sons. They will find that support. And that's why the language opens in a broad way and then constricts itself to the marriage relationship. This is Ar-rijal qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa. One last thing about this phrase. Ar-rijal qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa. Al-istiqama bima'na al-'adl. Qama, from istiqama, related to istiqama, actually means fairness. Men are going to be repeatedly fair to women. They're going to check themselves over and over again, am I being fair or am I being unfair? Am I justified in what I said and did or not? They are going to be fair judges over women over and over and over again in every situation that comes. Their dealings they'll have to check. And by the way, the word qawwam suggests repetition, something that's done over and over again. In other words, you cannot assume you're always fair. Every situation you're going to have to reevaluate yourself. Was I fair? 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 You're going to have to keep questioning that. And so Allah puts this in the form of khabar. In other words, men are qawwam over women. He doesn't say men are supposed to be. He says just this is what they are. This is it. As if men don't have a choice. It's a matter of fact. It's not what you should do. This is what you're going to do and that's it. There's no discussion. If there's room for discussion, you say they should be. لِيَكُونَ الرِّجَالُ قَوَّامِينَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. Perhaps men should be. يَنْبَغِي لِلرِّجَالِ أَنْ يَكُونُوا قَوَّامِينَ عَلَى النِّسَاءِ. No. Men are supposed to be. No, there's no supposed to be. This is what you are and that's it. The responsibility's already been dropped on you. That's the first part. Then the next part. بِمَا فَضَّلَ اللَّهُ بَعْضَهُمْ عَلَى بَعْضٍ. Because of the favor, Allah gave some over others. The next part is Allah made men maintainers, caretakers, providers, sources of support for women because Allah, on account of the fact that Allah favored some over others. Now I'm trying to translate carefully. Allah favored some over others. Allah did not say بِمَا فَضَّلَهُمُ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِنَّ. Because Allah favored men over women. That's not what Allah said. Allah said Allah favored some over others. You know what that means? That means in the first part of this ayah, if I've tried to explain this to you properly, you have not been given an advantage, you've been given a responsibility. The advantage has actually gone to women. You're the one taking care of them. You're the one providing support to them over and over and over again. You're the one protecting them over and over and over again. When you're the guard, and they're the one being guarded, who's the beneficiary? They are. They've been given an advantage. And so in the one sense, some people read this ayah and they assume immediately this ayah means men have an advantage over women. You look at it carefully, who's been given the advantage? You look at it carefully, Allah says some have been given advantage over others. In other words, men have this responsibility and they will have other advantages. And women have been given a responsibility and they will have other advantages. Allah is balancing the equation. This is what Allah does. Whenever He mentions a disadvantage, He counters it. You know? And so now on the other side, وَبِمَا أَنفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. And they have been made maintainers, caretakers, providers, all of this over women. Why? On account of what? Because they are to spend from their own monies. فَبِمَا أَنفَقُوا مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ. Allah has given you no choice in the matter. You cannot go with your wife to a restaurant and say, you pay. Your family's rich. You can't do that. No, shop for yourself. There are so many people, so many couples that are having money trouble. And the husband says, you earn your job money. And if you can't get a job, then too bad, I'm not getting groceries for you. You have to take care of yourself, I'll take care of myself. Allah says men don't have a choice. They will provide for their women. And they will not touch the women's money is not even talked about. What is hers, and what's yours is hers. That's literally what Allah did. That's what comes with being a man, tough. And now the other thing. You're supposed to repeatedly take care. She's getting angry and you're still a source of support. She's getting upset with you and you're still sticking with her. You don't slam the door and walk out and say, I had enough of this. I'm out. You can't. Mulaziman, you're committed. You're committed. That's what you are. Now this seems kind of unfair. I mean, she gets to do whatever she wants and I have to put up with all of this? You know? And I got to spend my money too? Congratulations on being a man. You know, this is the first half of the ayah.